So we'll just, good afternoon, everyone. So we gotta hit record, and then,
Just don't touch it.
well, we can make slides. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bill Dawes from the National Science Foundation, and I'm here to talk to you about the modernization of proposal preparation that we're doing at NSF.
And I'm Heather Ireland, and I'm here to talk to you about what we're doing with modernizing account management.
So today we're going to go through what we call PSM, Proposal Submission Modernization. We'll do an intro and a live demo, and then we're going to go through the account management modernization. We'll do an overview, walkthrough, and then we'll talk about some of the upcoming activities and opportunities for you to engage with NSF. So about 2 years ago, we did a large survey and a lot of webinars trying to interact with the community and find out how we could improve on Fastlane to prepare proposals. So we sent out a survey to over 100,000 people. We got a little over 16,000 responses. It took us some time to go through, but we found out a lot of information about how people were using our system and what they liked and didn't like. One of the biggest problem areas was that the web page layout wasn't intuitive, and one of the biggest potentials for improvement was on compliance checking. So I won't talk about any of our compliance checking today, but as a note, we now compliance check over 95% of all proposals that come in to NSF. So those are compliance checks that are done prior to submission. And some of the things in the demo you'll see today, we've tried to improve upon that and increase the amount of compliance checks so there won't be any returns without review. Some of the other things that brought up to us were data pre-population, so we're trying to lay the groundwork for those now. Some just-in-time proposal submissions. So that's another thing that Fastlane is very old. It was originally started in 1994, so we have to do some technical improvements on the back end before we can do things like just-in-time proposals. And then revision of the NSF solicitations. That's something that we're always trying to do better and improve upon. So our vision with PSM has been to modernize the applications and really support the user experience and develop this new application so that it can be used by anyone in the research community as easily as possible, very intuitively. But then we also want to reduce administrative burden. So that's a big goal of everyone, I think, who's here today. But also the NSF staff. So there are different areas, and I'll point them out as we go, that were very time consuming, particularly for our staff to wade through different areas of the proposal. And we've tried to reduce the amount of time it takes so that proposals can get to a panel quicker. So then also increasing efficiencies is kind of the generic. Anywhere we can do something more efficient, we're relentlessly trying to improve and do things better. And then the last two are very big. So we want to improve our data quality. So data is increasingly important these days, and we want to improve the quality of that data that goes into our systems. That way we can get better reports and outputs and potentially see things across agencies down the road. And then we do data analysis as well. So we look at all the project descriptions across programs and across different areas and directorates. So all the areas of science can be analyzed, and making sure that we can read those, ingest them, use some of our big data analytics is very important to us to then project where we might want to add funding or do things down the road. So we want to make sure that all the proposal content is mineable and searchable. So people may have seen this slide before. We do things in an agile way. We will have a big release at some point early next year, but we do run sprints, and we've been agilely developing modules. We've gone through a process, you'll see, where we've identified pain points, we looked for improvements, we brought them to our internal working group, which has representatives from every directorate at NSF in every area. We refined these concepts. We did a lot of usability sessions, so one-on-one sessions, group sessions. We brought some stuff here about a year ago and brought some concepts here. We've had our ERA forum, where we then have done surveys and tried to get as much feedback as possible. So this is an ever-growing process. And then finally go to the internal validation execution. And so what I'm going to show you today are pieces of the proposal system that have been developed that are going to go live early next year. So there are pieces that are in the end, but then we also have some of the pieces that are in the beginning too, because what you'll see isn't the final state. It's a iteration or a first phase that's going to go live, and then we'll make constant improvements. And I'll note some of the areas that I think you might find interesting. Without further ado, I'm going to bring up our new proposal preparation system. So as I said, you probably won't see this until early next year. We still have a few more modules to complete, but I wanted to walk through the basic steps of creating a proposal, show some of the differences with Fastlane, and then I will be available after the session, or if you have questions, I'll leave a stack of business cards if people want to email me their comments, but we really are always looking for feedback and looking to improve. So here I've already logged in to research.gov, and so as a PI, I have the ability now to create a proposal on research.gov. So you go through the desktop, you create the proposal. Now click on create new proposal. And what you see here is our first screen. So if you attended the Area A forum or were here before, this screen should look familiar. But one thing we learned from our usability interviews is that most people know the funding opportunity that they're going to apply to before they get to Fastlane. So one thing we did was we just tried to make it as quick as possible to filter, sort, look for what you're going to apply to, and just get there as quick as you can. So I'm just going to select a sample one, but you see here that the table's sortable, there's a filter. It's a much more modern interface than if you've selected a funding opportunity in Fastlane. So I can also search text too, I should point that out. So if you don't know the number, but you know the name, so type in. It'll just automatically sort, and you can easily find what you're looking for. So the main concept behind this wizard is that you're only given options that apply to you. So it should reduce the amount of mistakes, so you're not potentially submitting to the wrong directorate or a proposal type or a submission type that's not supported. So here in my example, I picked something that only goes to MPS and goes to the Division of Chemistry, and I'll save the centers selection. If you're applying to more than one, the pane on the right is sortable, so you can prioritize which program it goes to, so you can send it to multiple programs and pick the top one, and you can go up to 5, I think, maybe more. So then you select the proposal type. So right now we have all options, and as I said, we're iterating through. Right now all are available, but eventually this list will be tailored down so that if that solicitation only has conferences or equipment, that would be the only option that you could select here. So I'm just going to select a research proposal. And then submission type, very similar. If you're applying to something that is preliminary or letter of intent or only taking full proposals, you would only have that option. But right now, we have all of them. So the next question is about collaborative proposals. So in our initial release, we won't support collaboratives, but then very shortly after in our next releases, these will be supported. So one thing you'll notice here with the questions, there are dynamic questions. So while we've tried to improve the language. So while this might seem confusing, at first, you can always hover over and get more explanations. And we also have links out to our PAP guide and other references for help. So I can select a collaborative proposal, be the lead or non-lead, but for my example, I'm not going to choose a collaborative proposal. So most of the pieces of information you've seen so far are things that are on the cover sheet. So what we try to do is we try to take those pieces out and make it easier so you don't have to go into the cover sheet or remainder of cover sheet. One of our goals is to minimize the number of clicks. So we want you to be able to get into the system, set up a proposal as fast as possible, and really spend as little time as you could. So what you see here now, sorry, I guess I should start at the top. You see a title, funding opportunity, where to apply, the proposal type. So all those things you just selected in the wizard. But then you'll also see the proposal sections below. Sorry. So we only show the proposal sections that are required by that solicitation that you saw before. So this is a dynamic screen. You have required and optional sections. So depending on what you select to apply to, this page will change. We wanted to minimize the confusion. Fastlane right now has every option possible. So even if you're not applying to a goalie proposal, you still have that goalie form available. So again, just trying to dynamically gear the interface to streamline the process. On the left, you'll see a lot of things like allow SPO access, checking the compliance, printing, deleting. There's managed personnel. We'll get into that in a minute. Right now, I'm just going to show editing the title. So we've tried to do things inline and very quick using modern JavaScript interfaces. So if I want to edit the title, so I can put in a placeholder, start my proposal, get things going, come back, and click on this. So you might have seen other web forms that do very similar things. For some reason, this one's not working, so I'm going to gloss over that and just continue. Like I said, it's a work in progress. This is our acceptance environment. So you can go back, edit the title. I'm sorry, guys. It's a good thing we're recording this session. This is really cool.
You can just blame it on the Wi-Fi access.
Yeah, darn Wi-Fi. All right, so we'll just improv a little bit. So one of the other big things that we tried to streamline was the management of personnel. So after this reloads, I'm going to show you the personnel management screens. And what we've done there is we've organized it into PIs, co-PIs, senior personnel, and other authorized users. So other authorized users, we've noticed through our research and talking to people, play a very big role in creating proposals. And we know about a third. I'm stalling as much as I can, sorry guys. So let's go back. I'm gonna just reload really quick. Yeah, there we go. All right.
I should have better jokes prepared.
Yeah, I told you to prepare the jokes.
I know, I'm
Jeez.
sorry, I failed on that part.
You saved them all for your demo. All right, so I'm going to get into manage personnel now. And there we go. So what you see here is we have the PI at the top. So I logged in as this PI who's now added. And I have the options to add a co-PI, add the other senior personnel, or add another authorized user. The other authorized user we've separated out. As I was saying before, we noticed a lot of people use this for preparing proposals. We know that a lot of PIs lean on other people to help prepare proposals. So we've tried to make it as easy and as simple as possible to add another registered user to be able to help edit the proposal. First, I'm going to add some co-PIs though. So this is very similar to Fastlane, where you have an NSF ID or searching by email. So I'm just going to do a quick search. And you'll see a PI pops up. I can add the co-PI to the proposal. And now we get confirmation they've been added. In future iteration, we'll also be sending emails to those people so that they are aware they've been added to a proposal. Because one of the things that we're allowing is that co-PIs can now edit and have access to the sections, and then other senior personnel, I'll show next, can also be added and then granted access to help edit either their own senior personnel documents, so everyone could upload their own documents, or they could have access to edit other sections of the proposal as well. And that was something we got feedback at one of our last sessions here would be a helpful thing to do. So you see my other senior personnel have the same options of NSF ID or email, but other senior personnel do not have to be registered in the system, so we can also add them by name. So I'm going to add one person by NSF ID first. And a lot of these forms are also have real-time validation. So if I were to start typing in like alphanumeric characters other than numbers, it would say that it's not a valid NSF ID, or if I were to put in more than the 9 characters, it would be the same. So you see this person here has an NSF ID that is associated with 2 organizations. So they're Johns Hopkins as well as Purdue. So I have the option to select them for the appropriate organization. So saying that they're collaborating from Johns Hopkins. And now they've been added to the proposal. So one other thing we've done is that we can enter people by name. And if I enter in the same name of somebody who is on the proposal already, which I'll try to type out as fast as I can. Make sure I can spell this correctly. I spelled it wrong. I'm sorry, guys. So what happens is you can add somebody by name, which I just demonstrated. But then if you add someone with the same name, you'll get back a warning making sure that you actually wanted to add that person to the proposal who may have been added as a co-PI already or as another senior personnel. You can also remove people. It's just very quick to remove someone. And one thing to note is that when you remove a person from the proposal, you get this great confirmation screen, but what it's really telling you is that everything associated with that person, so their bio sketch, their CUA form, is going to be removed when you remove that person. That's mainly because we don't want to have orphan documents on our system for somebody who wasn't actually associated with the proposal. But it also has a note that if they're mentioned in, say, the budget justification, you should go back and remove them from there as well. Person's been removed. I can try again to spell somebody's name correctly.
You should have went with someone like John Doe.
I know, that would have been so much easier. Just always making life harder for myself. Actually, I'm not going to remember how to spell a person's name. I'm sorry, guys. We'll move on. So the other area I'm going to add is an OAU. So as I mentioned before, an OAU does not have to be a PI, co-PI, or other senior personnel. It's just somebody who's registered with NSF that you want to grant access to that proposal. So it could be an administrator, it could be a grad student, just anybody with an NSF ID who can be affiliated then with the organization. And so just wait for this to load. The screen you'll see here, it's the same as adding a PI or co-PI. Since they have to be registered with the system, we do require that they have an NSF ID or an email address that's associated with NSF ID that we can display. So I'm going to add Mr. Wainwright here. And yes?
Is it possible in your system that somebody other than the PI could initiate a proposal?
That is something in our backlog that we're going to be doing. The initial is going to be the PI. We have built in the ability so that if a PI starts it, they can remove themselves and assign somebody else as the PI. But for right now, you have to have the PI role, but we are going to get to that so that anybody can initiate on behalf of a PI and then assign that PI. We're just working out the workflow of the PI accepting that they want to be leading a proposal and ensuring that people aren't just making proposals on people's behalf without them knowing about it. We've got another question.
How is that restriction beyond submission? Will the PI have the authority to submit this proposal?
Only the AORs can submit proposals at this time. And so I'll make a plug. If you WebEx into our ERA forum, nope, that was what I think we did last time. So if you look at the videos or the slides from that, you can see our screens for the AOR. This time we're doing proposal file updates. So I'm just messing up all over the place today. So I'm going to go over to senior personnel documents. So we've added some people here. We added an OAU to help us prepare and get things together. And now we have all of our senior personnel listed out in the senior personnel document section. So you notice I went to the left navigation. So all of the required sections are over here on the left, as well as optional. These are collapsible menus. but it makes it easy to navigate between the sections. So you see things like BioSketch, the CUA form, current pending support. So I just clicked on BioSketch. I'll just show that's our new upload form. Give that a second. So what you have here is you have an easy way to go between all the people, and we know that some proposals can have a lot of senior personnel associated with them. So one thing we want to do is if you click expand all, it expands out everyone's sections, and then as things are uploaded, you can check and make sure that you have the green check marks down the whole row, and you can make sure that everybody has uploaded compliant documents. So that's also a shift that we've done, is every time you upload a document, it's going to be immediately compliance checked. So you get feedback as soon as you can. We want to make it as soon as possible for you to get compliance feedback. So I'm going to go now, show you BioSketch. I'm going to go in the CUA form since that was a hot topic this morning. I'll jump right into that. Please hold your questions on that till the end, or comments. You see we have different instructions here. Each form and each place you go for an upload has the very specific instructions about there, and a lot have help links out. So this has something to the template, for the CUA template, has a link out to where it is in the PAP guide, if you want to look at that specific guidance. And then it has some other generic things, like it must be an Excel file, and it must be no more than 10 megabytes. So I'm going to navigate to one that is already pre-populated. And what it's doing now, and one of the things we're trying to do with this, is extract out all the data. So since it was an Excel format, we've now read in all the cells from that Excel format, and what you see here is a preview of that data. So it's important to then scan down, make sure the data was extracted as you anticipated, all the conflicts are there. This is very important for our internal program officers to make sure that there are no conflicts when they create their panels. And now that we've done it in a structured format, we can upload the file. It'll generate a PDF version to be viewed. But the important part is now we've saved our internal staff a bunch of time. I know it might be time consuming and hard to put these together, but now we'll be guaranteed that there's access to that data. And down the road, as I said, we're doing iterative development. These will eventually be saved and reused. So as part of your profile, you're going to save this document, and we want to make sure it's the same thing across the board. So you'll be able to go in, and if somebody already has this uploaded, they can then opt in to get it reused, and they'll already have their conflicts saved. Down the road, we're also looking at things like ORCID and other pieces. Sorry, you have a question?
Yeah, just to follow up on this notion of having of where you get the information. One of the things you have to put in is sort of all of your former students too. That's oftentimes, if they're reported on NSF, you put them in when you put in your research report. So I was wondering if there's a way to sort of, sort of take that data before, so you would maybe just start to put the information in, and it could pre-populate because it would recognize that this was somebody who had been in the system before, perhaps in a different role as a student or postdoc.
So that's part of our future goals. Heather will talk a little bit about our centralized account management, but one of the future versions will have these profiles. So if somebody already had their information and they had, we have some good people on our general counsel who are very conscious about privacy, so people have to opt in then for their data to be pre-populated. But that is the idea, that if someone's already has their information, they're added to a proposal and they elect that option, then we will already have their conflicts, so they don't have to then go and report them again. So we're working out the details, and don't expect to see that for at least another year or two. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but we've laid the groundwork here to get down that road. So hopefully it will be a one-time thing, or potentially you go in and can update things as you go, instead of recreating this for every proposal for every single person. So as I said, one thing we have here is we have a PDF version. So what we've done is, since we extract out the data, we now made sure we have a searchable PDF as well as having the structured data in our database. So I'm going to skip over then to the budget. because this is another area we tried to make some significant improvements. So one thing you'll see in the top right, we have very big the total requested amount, and that is because we want people to notice that it is something that we're automatically doing. You don't have to remember to put it on the cover sheet separately. We're going to take that amount, and you don't have to do any extra pieces. So one thing with the budget that we are doing is we're doing some live validations. So like I couldn't enter D there, I can't enter more than 12 months. But I also have to make sure I have every person in here too. So if I go to save this now, without any information, person in the third row, we'll get back an error.
I know that you just had months there. Are you going to be requesting, calendar academic summer or just?
So we've tried to streamline that, so it's just months now. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. One note about the budget as well, we know that people in Fastlane use the Excel upload option very heavily. That will be a feature that we roll out in a future release as well. We wanted to get this form up first, just trying to get out our minimum product. So you see that I got an error at the top of the screen from not having any budget or months associated with one of the senior personnel. So one thing that you can do in Fastlane, try to make it easy to do here, is that you can hide somebody from the budget. So that's in line with our policy. And somebody could be a senior personnel but not draw funds. So I've updated them, and you'll see now they're hidden from the budget, but we still have access to those senior personnel docs because they are someone who is important to this proposal. Oh, I didn't save. Always pay attention to the confirmation pop-ups. So let me go back. I'll hide that person again. So you also see that we have a lot of the expanding and collapsing for the budget. So if you need to see a rolled up budget without all the details, it's very easy to look through and check. And I'm just going to save that again. And so now I don't have any errors. You can see it's saved successfully. When I go to senior personnel docs, that person is still there because they're only hidden from the budget. So one other thing to note, I'll just show some of these other things. We also have things like equipment, so it's a lot easier to add, remove lines from your budget. You can also add years, so it's very easy to copy years over. Sorry, we have a question in the back?
Yeah. So, since you're automating this, I'm holding off asking questions on the CUA form.
Thank you.
When you finish the budget, will it now auto-populate as a pending proposal, the current proposal? Because one of the annoying parts of Fastlane now is that when you do your current and pending support, you have to enter the current proposal into that oftentimes.
Oh, yeah.
If you do that, you have to wait until the very end and you actually have the budget number to do that. If it auto-populated like it does the cover page, then that would be fantastic. Since you're automating things, I want you to
So current and pending support is one of the areas that we're targeting for data pre-population. It won't be in the first release. Our first release will simply have an upload. It's very free form because there are issues with the current Fastlane one. But that is something we will be targeting for a future release. And also, since we know about all the NSF awards for current support, we'll be able to pre-populate all the ones and then allow people to choose which ones they think are relevant to that proposal. Because we know people are on multiple awards. But that is future phase. Thank you. So another thing I'm going to point out, I'm going to hop back to the forms page. I should have pointed this out before. So we have some documents that are conditionally required. So like a postdoc mentoring plan. You see here it says conditionally required, and I can't upload it yet. So that's because it's conditional on having a postdoc budget in here. So if I go in and add some numbers, can save this. And I'll be able to go back to my forms page and now upload a postdoc mentoring plan. So this is something, again, we've tried to make it as dynamic as possible so that if there is something there, you know you have to do it in the required section. And so you see here with all of our other uploads, very specific instructions. Everything has different page limits. And we want to make sure that it's as easy as possible to navigate through and have everything as compliant as possible.
I have a question. In principle, I see what you're trying to do here, but in practice, when you're actually preparing your proposal, you don't necessarily do things in the order that you're saying. So you might be waiting on a final budget number for somebody, so you don't have your budget up, but you've written your postdoc elementary plan, so you want to go and put it in, but it won't let you click on it because you don't have anything in the budget. And so I can sort of understand the motivation, but I'm not sure that that would result in some confusion down the road.
Definitely understand. Like in my example, as long as you have any number in there, it'll pop up.
Go back and fix it.
Right. And one thing with the budget, we know a lot of people, like an SPO, may go add the budget later. So the actual compliance checks that are done on the budget are not done until the final submission. It won't actually do a hard stop and prevent submission. But I definitely hear your feedback on the conditional. So maybe we can try to figure out a different way to do that workflow. So I do want to show, sorry I'm taking a little bit longer than, yes?
I have a question on this one, and it's a little bit more complicated. But you know how we now have in the summary, you have it in a three-part section, and so that each cup is automatically covered. And so I think in the postdoctoral mentoring plan, a huge deficiency in the postdoctoral mentoring plan is that you don't require the institutions to have a section that they must add to that program. And it would be better to have it as a two-part form where the institution, that is the graduate school, the office, the vice president of research, or whoever, is actually supposed to have institutional programs for postdocs, that they have a section they must enter, and that you have a section at the PI that you must enter for your part in that process. Because I think that having looked at a lot of the postdoctoral mentoring plans, the institutional contribution is often not easily available. So
I know there are some people from our policy office that you definitely discuss with them, and they can take that back. When Jean's back, I'll just leave it on her desk for her. So we've just implemented this screen in the postdoc mentoring plan to policy as it is today. But I will, since you mentioned project summary, I'm going to jump into that section. So a lot of our sections are uploads. We have project summary, project description, references cited, data management plan, postdoc mentoring plan. These are all just, slight shift, these are all just PDF uploads. But not that they're forms. So what we've done is we know from talking to people that a lot of people develop their project summaries and descriptions offline. So they're either working in Google Docs, Office 365, LibreOffice if you're a Linux user, but you're doing your work in your environment with other researchers or whoever you're working with, collaborating, and we just want to get something that adheres to our policies and it's very flexible. So what we've done is we've made so that it accepts PDF, and then it inspects that PDF file for the different pieces that are required. So in project summary, you're required to do overview, intellectual merit, and broader impacts is the sections. But fascinating today, you have to copy and paste. You know, a lot of people really hate that copy and paste. So that was one of the things we got rid of. So all you do now is if you're working in, say, Microsoft Word, you export your Word file to a PDF, and then you come in here to upload it. So I'll show you a few different cases. Oops, no, not that folder. So let's say you've created something in Word or Google Docs, you've exported it out to PDF, so this is my project summary, but you forgot to put in the overview. So, or maybe you had your overview, but you did not have a section titled the overview. So you'll see my great file name titled no overview. What we're going to do is we read through the PDF and we immediately throw back any errors. So again, one of the goals is to minimize returns without review. So as per our policy, you must have all 3 sections distinctly labeled. So now it's saying you don't have a section of overview. So you go back, look in your document, make sure you have all 3 sections. But this is also checking the page count. It's checking the margins, the line spacing, the fonts. Pretty much everything that you see in the PAPG, if you go out to this link that says must be done, is now being checked in that PDF. So we are going to have a limited font set for our first release. One of the fonts that's in our policy guide is Times New Roman 11 point. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to expand out from there as we need to. But the key difference is we're not going to be doing PDF conversions. In Fastlane today, you can upload a Word file or the LaTeX. Actually, I think we got rid of LaTeX. You can upload different file types, and then we do the conversion for you. Here we're just asking you to do the conversion, and then we'll compliance check it. But then the one guarantee we have is if it made it into the system and you're able to save, then it's compliant. It's not going to be returned without review for like a page count or something like that. So here I did more than 1 page. So I uploaded some of 2 pages, immediately comes back with the error. So I'm going to show you one that works. So now I've had a successful project summary, had all 3 sections, had some content in those sections that then had the right line spacing, fonts, margins, etc.
So
Yes?
if you do hit one of these errors, the document will not upload?
Correct. So our goal is we don't want anything to be saved that could potentially be submitted and then be returned without review.
The only reason I bring it up is, often when it's being sent over to the central office and still in the draft form, and we want to see that draft so we can include it in the review. And that may mean that things like the project summary are too long, or the project description is too long if they haven't, they're working on cutting it back. So, although I agree, I don't want to submit anything without it, having it as an error that doesn't allow us to, for example, submit it would be easier than now to say, okay, well then can you email us these sections that we weren't able to upload so that we can review them.
Thank you. It's a very good feedback.
You mentioned that we cannot upload a Word document, we will not be able to convert it. Convert it to be done outside of the system and upload the PDF.
Correct.
And then you will be validating the PDF that it has the right sections in it.
Yes. So what we're doing is we're reading the text in the PDF. So if you've exported from, say, Google Docs, it's machine readable. That's another part of our trying to get everything to be able to be data mined and have good data quality. But so we're reading the PDF and then reading those headings in there.
Okay, but that's actually concerned. PDF can be generated in so many different formats and ways.
Right. So we're asking people not to scan in PDFs. We're asking them to export them out digitally. Yeah. We don't want people printing something out and scanning it in. Because when we do that, then there's no way for us to extract out the content to look at that. And there's no way for us to check the compliance. And one of the things internally for our staff, now they spend hours and hours with some people with rulers checking line spacing and checking the margins. And you can imagine with 65,000 submissions a year, those hours add up checking every single one. So it is a trade-off. And we understand that there are a few people who are not going to like this in particular.
So your error message will be very clear that it's missing the section.
Yep, yeah, so each thing, so like project description, if you don't have the intellectual merit, it'll say this does not contain a section heading intellectual merit. Or if, say, you're using 7 lines per inch, it'll say you've exceeded 6 lines per inch. Or like with the margins, it'll say you exceeded the 1 inch margin. So it's very specific. So hopefully, if there is a compliance issue, the only one that you can go back and format your document and upload it. So I do understand if someone's over the page limit, that is going to be a barrier. But we want to try to get things compliant and save time.
Will you provide templates for PDFs so people can just use those rather than trying to figure out the size?
That's something we've looked into doing down the road. for now, we're not going to do templates yet, but that's something we can put into the future releases. So I know I'm running short on time. So one of the last things I want to show you is the cover sheet. So a lot of information that was in the cover sheet was in that wizard and has been put in other areas of the proposal that makes a little more sense. So the cover sheet section that we have now has a lot of the extra ones, like awardee organization. So this is just taken out of, it's pre-populated. We have some checkboxes. The primary place of performance is pre-populated but can go and be edited if it is a different primary place of performance from the awardee organization's central. Adding different federal agencies, and there are a few more that, as you can see, it's blank right now. We are going to be finishing that our next sprint. What you guys are seeing is just as much as we've developed. So the cover sheet's a lot more trimmed down than what it is in Fastlane, and it doesn't have the remainder of the cover sheet or a lot of the extra navigation that can be very confusing for people. I know I'm always frustrated when I go in to test something, but then I have to go enter in 5 things on the cover sheet before going and testing something on the project summary or something. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Heather, and I can answer more questions, and I will be here at the end after as well.
All right, thank you, Bill. So I'm here today to talk to you about NSF's efforts around modernizing our account management functionality. And what we mean by that is how you get an account created, and in our world that's an NSF ID and password, and then how you manage that account, including the password, and also all the data associated with it, your name, your email, and also your role information. And I'm going to be talking a lot about accounts and roles. So just to be clear, when we say role, we're talking about, are you a PI, are you an AOR, are you an administrator, are you an ACMS user, all of those types of things. So some background on this effort is that we know you and your colleagues are using various functions in Fastlane and Argov, and Jeremy mentioned this morning, that all of them have different login screens, slightly different credentials. You actually have to set up some permissions in Fastlane and some you have to do in Argov. So what we're doing is, this is an effort to consolidate and streamline that to reduce the burden on your end, and also to have better quality data. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So we're looking at centralizing this, and some of the other goals are to consolidate so that you have one place to log in. And this is the part I was talking about in terms of the data quality. So we're going to be putting more in to enforce our policy that each individual user only have one NSF ID. So right now we know out there are more than one NSF IDs, especially in our PI population. We are doing a lot with this effort to restrict that. Not only is it our policy, but when we're talking about some of the efforts that Bill was mentioning in terms of being able to pre-populate data, we have to be able to rely on the uniqueness of that NSF ID, that we can pull that kind of data in for you. We're also going to be adding a lot of what I call self-management features. So the actual users themselves will be able to register for an account without having to have the administrator get the NSF ID for them. We're going to allow people to request roles. So if you're new at an organization and you want to be a PI, you can actually start that workflow to your administrator yourself. And we're also going to have features for you to manage your profile. So that's your profile data, and as well as your roles. And like Bill, we have a working group that we're working with internally to get this built, and we're also following an agile process. And so you will be hearing more and more about this effort and ways you can get involved. This is a more detailed screen of what Jeremy showed you this morning if you were in the plenary session. And you can see that the current state on the left-hand side is very, very busy. And that's sort of intentional, because that's sort of how it is right now. It's kind of all over the place. So one person has to log into all these different places to do their business with NSF. So as you can see on the target state, we're basically looking at having a person only log in one place, and then they'd have access to all the features that they need to use. And then in account management, we're going to be providing a way to manage your profile, and I've just sort of highlighted the fields that we have right now: name, email, phone number, address, and then the roles. And all of the roles are spelled out later at the bottom. If you don't know them, you can read what those are, but those are your standard PI, AOR, etc. So in this streamlined process, we're really going to make sure that we have one unique NSF ID per person. There's the other goals are to allow, like I said, self-management. We're also going to be providing a central location for you to request roles, as well as to see what roles you have. We're going to be providing the administrators dashboard functionality so they can look at all of their user population in one place to see if they want to approve or disapprove these requests. They can still assign roles, and you'll be able to remove users, add users, as well as add or remove specific roles. For existing users that have NSF IDs, we're going to be providing a one-time process to move you into the new functionality. For those of you who have ever had your bank ask you to verify your profile information, or it's time for you to verify your profile information, it'll be a similar process. So you'll get, when you log in, a screen that says NSF is updating our account management process. Please validate your information and continue. So for existing users, it's going to be a very simple process. You don't have to do a lot just to be able to take advantage of the new functionality. In this process, we're going to be also retiring several things in Fastlane and the current research.gov. So like I was talking about, all those different places where you're doing user management related activities, those are going to be retired, and now you'll be able to do all of that in the new account management functionality, which I should highlight is going to still be in research.gov. And we'll see some screens when I get later in the presentation. But all of this is really about reducing burden on your end, and especially also allowing us to more efficiently carry out our audit compliance and our conflict of interest management. So it's very important that we make sure that everybody has one account. So here's a slide that just shows all of our NSF community in terms of user groups, the way we think of it. I've highlighted the organization users. I'm going to come back to that. But right now, the organization users are the only ones who have NSF IDs today. But we're looking at expanding this functionality so that it covers all of the research community. So that would be our GRFP applicants, our reviewer population, and then also our NSF staff, particularly our rotators and IPAs. So we're envisioning that when this project is done, that everybody will have an NSF ID, which will allow us to do a lot more sophisticated data analysis, pre-population, conflicts checking, etc. So the organization users, just to be clear, there's a note there that we're talking about PIs, SPOs, AORs, our organization administrators, ACMS users, and GRFP officials. Those folks already have NSF IDs, so we're starting with that population. We're going to be building this in increments. That population is also where our PIs sit, and the PIs are actually the ones we're most concerned about right now in terms of having more than one NSF account. So we're going to be starting there, but these other groups are in scope for the overall project. So this screen just talks a little bit about what's being retired. So I can talk a little bit about it, but the user management module in research.gov. In research.gov, there's also something called an activation module. There's a subset of functionality there that is going to be retired, and that is the ability to link NSF accounts, because we are not going to allow you to have more than one NSF account. So the linking is going to be gone. The other functionality that's in there that allows you to link to your in-common credentials, that will all still be there. It's just this subset that's going to be retired. In Fastlane, you have the ability to do new organization registration and also register as postdoc fellowship registration. All of that's going to be turned off. You'll be able to create new organizations and also register to be a new individual researcher, all in this new functionality in research.gov. And likewise, the Fastlane, some of the account management will be also decommissioned there. There's some details in the back that if you guys are interested, and if we have a little time, I might go through some more detail, but there's some screenshots and some more specifics about which things in Fastlane are going to be going away. So the upcoming activities, I'm going to talk about this before I go into a walkthrough that's going to show you some of the screen designs. Another plug for the ERA forum. This is a great way to get involved, to be able to ask questions, to see what we're doing in more in-depth. So right there is the website for you to take a look, and we highly encourage you to attend. It's coming up on September 19th. This project is also going to be doing usability testing similar to what PSM had done. That's going to hopefully start in mid-September. And once again, at the ERA Forum would be a great place to come and volunteer. If you can't attend the ERA Forum, although I really think you should, if you can't, you can always email the NSF ERA Forum at nsf.gov and let us know that you're interested in participating in the usability. For initial launch, we are also targeting early 2018, similar to PSM. We are also going to be rolling out in phases. All of the functionality I'm about to cover will be included, but what we're doing is rolling out to a small user base to start with, so it's the full functionality, but we want to make sure that we don't have any issues with our outreach and communication or procedures or software. So it's going to start with a smaller user base, and then we'll be expanding from there. If any of you were around for the ACMS launch, it will be similar to that, where we start with a few institutions that will be in, and then we'll keep adding from there in a couple additional releases. But the initial one is scheduled for early 2018. So before I get into a walkthrough of some of the screen designs, does anyone have any questions? You gave them all to Bill, did you? Oh wait, we have one.
You mentioned that each person would only be allowed to have one account, right?
Correct.
Is that one account per organization?
No, one account. So you should have one NSF ID that belongs to you as a person. That NSF ID can be affiliated to more than one organization.
Okay, thank you.
So also, if you should still have one ID. If you can be one ID and belong to more than one organization, you can also have one ID and also be an individual researcher. You should still be one ID. So I think of the ID as going with the person, and those are roles. And you actually, when we start showing you the dashboard, I think you'll start to see that hierarchy. So the hierarchy really isn't clearly in there today, but we're trying to build that hierarchy that you as a person are at this level, and then you have roles. Because for instance, and we haven't gotten there, but when we start talking about profile, your profile data is yours, whether you're a reviewer, whether you're a PI, you're still your specialty, or your CV is still you. So we're trying to move to that, and that's part of this. And I think you'll see that in some of the screens coming up. All right. Oh, yes?
Has there been any discussion about giving other authorized users access on a limited basis or restricted basis for activity in research.gov?
I'm not aware of beyond the proposal. It will be, the OAUs will be part of this registration process. We haven't figured out exactly how that's going to work. They're set up a little differently than the existing folks, so we do know it's an issue, so we're looking at it. But in terms of maybe Bill can answer.
Yeah, we've gotten feedback that it would be helpful for a concept like another authorized user for reports, for project reports, whatnot. And so that's something that is being looked at.
Yes?
So I know that you support federated logins. So currently the process is that you have to get an NSF ID outside and then link it when you do your federated login. Is that process going to be changed as well?
Not at this point. That should remain the same. All right. Okay, so this is going to be a walkthrough. These screens are still in development. We're also following an agile process, just like Bill's team. We're not quite ready to do the live demo, but we will be doing that probably at some upcoming events. What you'll notice is the look and feel is very similar, because we're trying to give you the experience that you're in one system. So the new features that Bill just showed you are also going to be in the account management functionality. So for instance, your filters on your tables, your sorting, that all should be working the same. So really, hopefully those features will become will be very intuitive, and you'll see them in both places. So for starters, this is the account registration. Like I said, it's notional at this point. This is really only for our new users. So like I said, existing users will not need to go here. You will be migrated over when you log in with a verification screen. This is for people who are brand new. And what they're going to see is on the research.gov homepage, there's going to be a new link up at the right-hand corner called Register. If you click that, you're going to get this form. It looks very similar to a lot of other kinds of account registration. There's very minimal information that's required, but we have some optional fields. Obviously your name is required, and we're requiring a primary email. I have a couple points I want to make about primary email. So what you enter here should be an address that's going to stay with you, that you're going to have access to no matter which job you have or where you're going, because that is what we're going to be using to send password recovery emails to. If you've forgotten your password or you have a problem with your NSF ID, that's the email that we're going to be using. So we're suggesting that if you use something that you would always have access to, perhaps a Gmail account or something like that. The other thing that we're doing with primary email is part of our move to try to make sure that we have unique accounts If you enter a primary email address that we already have on record belonging to another NSF ID, you're going to get an error message telling you that you need to go log in with that one and that you should not be, that you're not allowed to create another account. So you will not be able to create a new account with the same email that already exists in our system. We also provide a way for you to put a secondary email in there, but that will also be checked. So you have to have a unique email in here to create a new account. I think I saw a question in the back.
Yeah. My question is about transfer PIs. And so sometimes we have new faculty coming to the institution, and they're new, and they don't remember their NSF ID number. They forgot they even had one, and they were a grad student working on their dissertation activity grant. And so they'll say, oh, I don't have one. Hope to find out months later they actually have one. And so now we've got two accounts. Is there a way for the central office and for the AOR to do a search to see if we can find?
Yes, when we get to the way that the administrators can add users, we're going to let you search by email, so hopefully you can find them. If you do identify that, though, you do need to call the NSF help desk, because we do need to resolve that. I'm not going to get into too much of that here, but we are aware of the existing accounts that have this problem, so we are actually working with our policy office to try to address as many of those before launch as possible, but this should hopefully prevent any new ones happening. But what we do see, though, and that's why we're trying to prevent this, is a lot of people think when they move between institutions that means they should get a new account, and that's actually the opposite of what the policy says.
That may be an issue for AORs as well.
Yes, I mean the PIs are more complicated in terms of consolidating accounts because they could have active work, but yes, we actually have a list of all of our active users that have duplicates. It's actually smaller than you might think. We have about, how many active accounts, do you remember? Well, there's only about 1,400 that have duplicates, and I think that's out of a population of...
It's over 100,000.
Over 100,000. So it's relatively low, but it is out there and is a problem because then we can't do this uniqueness. We're not sure who you are. So like I said, going forward, we're hoping to encourage people to keep that primary email so that then if I've forgotten, then I know my email because I'm hopefully using that all the time. So that way we can recover your ID, recover your password. Yes?
What if you're transferring in and you no longer have access to your primary email? Can you change the primary email?
You will be able to change your primary email once you have a profile set up. On initial migration, if you have more than one, when we move you over, we're going to give you also an error if you've got duplicates out there because we're going to have to take care of that beforehand. We'll have to address it. But like I said, going forward, and that's why I'm making this point, is that, and then there's actually going to be, there's an infocon here that will tell you that the primary email, that's the point of it. Because if you put something that you will always have access to, you should, these problems that we've had with people, we know there's been some issues with people not being able to reset their password because they don't have access to that email anymore. There is a place that I'll show you where your work email is a good place to put it. This is not that place. Okay? The other thing I would highlight is, because someone brought it up in the plenary session, that we do have the ORC ID as an optional field right now. We're not doing anything more like with some sophisticated integration at this point, but we are starting to, or we are collecting it if you want to provide it. All right, so once you have an account, this is where the gentleman was asking about where could you change your information. So once you have an account on the research.gov homepage, there's something called My Profile. Actually, you can see it up in the right-hand corner. If you select that, you're going to be brought to your profile, and this is the information you can edit here. You'll also have a link to change your password from here. And right now you see it's very basic, but as Bill was mentioning, this is the place where we're talking about adding some more profile information that you could store. So you could maybe have your CV here down the road, maybe any kind of specialty, if you want to keep information about what specialty you have, maybe your CUA information. There's a lot of possibilities here. Right now it's pretty basic, but the idea is anything that's going to be at that person level, we're looking at trying to store here. Right now we have some data, like there's some demographic data on the PI records, we have some stuff with reviewer. What we want to do is say, no, that belongs to the person, not the role. So this is where that would happen. I want to call your attention to the left-hand navigation because you'll see there's My Profile, and we're on this View Edit Profile. There's also two other areas, My Roles and My Organizations. My Roles, that is actually for individual people to look at what roles they have and also to request new roles. So maybe I am a PI and I now want to request to have a CMS role. or some other role. We'll show you that in a minute, but that's where you would go to request it. The administrators are the only ones who are going to have the My Organizations. And we say organizations because in theory you could be managing more than one. Underneath here, you're going to have a place for you to manage your users in a dashboard, and we'll show you that in a minute. So, as I was just saying, if I am existing and I want to request a new role, you're going to get a screen that looks like this that has the tiles. Now, we're actually going to be modifying these tiles so they will end up looking just like the ones that Bill showed you that have create proposal. So it's very similar, that has additional information you can read. But here you would select, if you're going to prepare proposals, that means you're looking for a PI role. If you're going to be managing organizations like an AOR, that's the central tile, and then you have the managed financials, which are our ACMS roles, and then registering to be GRP officials. Now what's not there now but will be there is the GRP applicants and our reviewers. So that will be in a future release. So you can select one of these tiles, and they work very similarly to the wizard that Bill showed you, because like I said, we're trying to have the same look and feel. In this case, you kind of go through the same wizard, which we call it a role request wizard. You fill out some basic information, and then when you get to the confirmation screen, it's going to be sent off to your administrator for approval. So what we're going to start off with is you're going to have to tell us which institution you're talking about. And this is where we're talking about allowing you can have more than one account with a PI. So if you wanted to be a PI at institution A, you fill that DUNS ID, go through the process, you come back here, select it again, and put it in a different institution. But you do have to have a valid DUNS ID in order to proceed. But let's just say I'm managing an organization, so I'm maybe going to come in here and look for an AOR role. So I look up my institution, and I'll find it here, I'll select it. It'll let me know whether it's already registered with NSF or not. If it's not registered with NSF, then you're going to be basically auto-directed to create a new institution. I don't have the details on that process, but another plug for the ERA form. We'll be going over that, although I know a lot of you are from established institutions, but we will be going over how to set up a new one at the ERA forum. But in this case, I've selected my institution, and then I need to add information. So the only thing you need to add for managed orgs role would be a work phone number and a work email. So this is the place where we would like you to put that university email, your organization email. This is the one, it's not going to be used for password recovery, it'll be used for communications with you about awards or proposals, that sort of thing. So that's where that email address should belong. You'll get a, next screen will have you choose a role. So you could choose if you want to be administrator or an AOR or whatever. In this case I said AOR. So then you just get a review and a confirmation, and then we'll tell you who we sent that request to for approval. So let's see. I was looking at the time. So we don't have too much more time, but we'll go over this, a couple more screens here. And then, like I said, the slide deck will be up with all of the material, and I guess a video, so you can see me actually talk again if you'd like. So the next screen here, this is on left-hand navigation when I was talking about the My Organizations of you users. So this is the place we were talking about where administrators can see all of their information. So the top table is all the pending role requests. So if somebody sent you a request saying, hey, I'm new at your organization and I would like to be a PI, you can see that up here. You'll have the ability to approve or disapprove. I'm pointing at the screen as if you guys can see where I'm pointing. I don't know. I'll put it over here. The second table is the Manage My Users table, and these are your existing users. So you'll have options to manage their roles. So that will bring up a pop-up where you can add or remove roles for that individual. You can also remove the user. And you'll see there's a button that's an Add User. We don't have a screenshot, but if you click Add User, it looks just like the windows that Bill showed you, where you can enter an NSF ID or an email to add them. There's another option on here, which is called Invite to Update Profile. I'm not going to go into the details in this session about that, but that is actually an interim option that's going to be needed for when we start rolling this out. Because if the person hasn't logged in and had their account migrated yet, and you want to modify them, you're going to have to invite them to do that update before you'll be able to change their roles. So it's just they'll get an email telling them they need to do this process. So on the flip side, if you are, let's say you are the PI, what you would see is under, View My Roles, and this will show you at the top. I'm doing it again. At the top, it'll show you any pending requests you have. So if you sent something out to your administrator, you'll be able to see the status that's still out there. and below you're going to actually see all your roles. And you can see that it expands and collapses just like the PSM information you saw. And also, if you have roles with more than one organization, they will be here as well. And then you'll have the ability to edit your information. So if you need to change your phone number or your work email on a particular thing, you can do that. I will point out that we provide one work phone number and one work email per organization you're with. So if you have more than one role, you're still going to have that same work number and email. So if you change it once, it'll change it for all roles there. And actually, at this point, I was going to, these are actually more reference slides about what was being retired in Fastlane, but since we're pretty much close to the end, if my timing is right, then I would like to make sure I leave some time for questions. And like I said, these will be up on the website, but I'll show you real quick that they're just sort of, here's what's being retired with some Fastlane screenshots. And it'll talk to you about what's being retired and where you can do it in the new system. But there'll be more to come at the ERA forum. Does anyone have any more questions that they want to ask either me or Bill right now? Okay, I'll start with the lady in the middle here.
So the question is, in the functionality, will users still have the ability to provide access to the central office with the application document?
Yes, so that's something I didn't show because we haven't developed it yet, but you'll be able to give the sponsored project office access to view. We have several layers so you can view or view and edit, or another button to when it's ready for submission to market as such.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
So I waited to the end to ask about the CUA Form. And one of the things I want to say is that you're doing a marvelous job of making this a lot smoother and more effective. And the CUA Form is in stark contrast to that, because Excel, while a very handy personal tool, is a lousy public tool, a really lousy public tool. And the kind of thing that you don't have in there, which is capturable, for example, would be, as I'm going through to fill it out, if I could enter the ORCID number for one of my former students, or if I could enter their name and it would grab the ORCID number for the former student, so that it would always update itself and be potentially useful to everybody. You say, well, when you fill it out, then in a few years, you just have to update it every time you submit a grant. But I update it. And the reality is you should update it. And NSF should have it in a system that is drawing that information continually from public sources so that we don't have to do it.
Yep. So I do want to say that, as I was saying with the iterative development, we are going to have a web form option as well down the road, and ORCID integration is something we plan on doing.
6 hours last week.
I'm sorry for that.
Okay, and that's a burden.
Thank you.
And it's whoever designed it and decided that was the way it's going should go along with Excel and be retired by Microsoft. I mean, that's a ridiculous addition. I say that as a former NSF employee. It is unconscionable that in an age when you're presenting those wonderful additions to research.gov, that you produce a form that costs 6 hours worth of effort. You know how many upgrades you have to make in order to get that 6 hours back? Seriously. You saved me 5 minutes. It cost me 6 hours. It's not a good return. I waited to the end, but I really think that NSF needs to think about that, because you implemented that. And I rate that right up with grants.gov and Adobe Forms or Pure Edge. That's disastrous for all of us.
We will definitely take your feedback back.
You got your
Thank you.
point. Does anyone have any other questions?